Hey everybody, how are you doing? Decided to go live a little bit early. It's been one of those days today. It's been fairly strange today with videos and stuff like that. I don't know what to think, really. Been a bit disillusioned today with everything. That's why I changed the title of the live stream. Hey Jack, how you doing? I don't know what I think. You know, I'll put this on the screen because this is the principle that basically guides me in everything that I do, and this is what I truly believe in. A famous quote attributed to Winston Churchill regarding free speech is, "Some people's idea of free speech is that they are free to say what they like, but if anyone says anything back, that is an outrage." This quote highlights a common misunderstanding of free speech where individuals believe they have the right to express themselves without any repercussions, but fail to recognize that they need a two-way exchange of ideas. Now, I think that firmly describes the far left, doesn't it? But I think what shocked me today more than anything is it also described some people on the right as well. I did a video on the whole Andrew Lawrence thing. In the end, I just deleted it because I got sick and tired of trying to explain what free speech was to people. And this was from people who are on the right. And I just got tired of it. I was like, I'm done. I'm done. I actually just thought about quitting YouTube at one point. It's like, I was so shocked at how people thought that certain people were exempt from criticism. And it's like, that's not how free speech works. And unless you believe in this on the screen right now, then what are you fighting for? Because this is what I'm fighting for. And what a lot of people don't understand is that if you truly believe in free speech, you believe in free speech for everybody, and that includes your enemies. Because if you don't believe in that, if you don't believe in free speech, even for the people that you disagree with, then you don't believe in free speech. You just don't. I'm not going to go into the whole Andrew Lawrence thing because I kind of got the impression after a bit there was an underlying current with that debate, that it wasn't just about free speech. This was about seething hatred for that two groups of people had for each other. I think this was pretty much connected to a football type thing as well. There was an underlying hatred between two separate groups that really hated each other. And I just didn't want to get involved in that. That's another reason why I deleted the video, because I was getting a lot of those sort of people coming on it as well. It's like, that's not what my video was about. My video was about everybody's entitled to free speech. Andrew Lawrence is allowed his free speech, and the people who criticize him deserve their free speech too. And I wasn't talking about the people that were saying they wanted to cancel him, because obviously I'm totally against cancel culture 100%. If your only argument is to cancel somebody to destroy their livelihood, then you're just a piece of shit. You're not worth anything, in my opinion. I'm not siding with those people whatsoever. The people I was siding with were the genuinely angry people that were just putting criticism towards Andrew Lawrence. I'm siding with those people because if I want free speech, and if all these people who say they were free speech extremists want free speech, then you have to acknowledge that they deserve their free speech as well. That's all I was saying. And it's like this at the bottom here as well. The quote suggests that true understanding of free speech involves not only the right to speak freely, but also the obligation to listen and to engage with diverse perspectives, even when they challenge one's own beliefs. In essence, Churchill's words serve as a reminder that free speech requires a willingness to tolerate counter-arguments and dissenting opinions. That's what free speech is to me and everybody else. We can't exist as a country without this guiding principle here, because without this, We can't have debates in Parliament. We can't have debates out in the street. And fundamentally, that's where things should go. Things should go to a playing field of free ideas, where they're openly challenged, where they can be discussed and criticised openly by everybody, and everybody has a say, not just people that, you know. I saw a bit of a hive mind on the right today as well, like I saw on the left, which was a bit disturbing. People fail to understand the bigger picture. And that's what concerned me more than anything else, really. It really did. I was ready for quitting today. I was like, that's it, I'm done with YouTube. I can't be doing this anymore. But I think cool heads. So look at what Steve's got to say. So free speech means the left don't tell people not to engage with others like CP reports, etc. Exactly. We see that all the time at protests, don't we, where they come up and they tell people not to engage in free speech. That's because they hate it. They don't like free speech because free speech is where their ideas go to die, isn't it? That's why the far left don't like free speech. They haven't got a single argument that if free speech is allowed, that can stand up to scrutiny. We haven't got free speech. Just look at what happened to after Southport last summer. Exactly. You could also argue that Lucy Conley was locked up for tweeting, so were a good many others. Does that mean he should be locked up? Of course not. But it's an argument they could make. Yeah, exactly. I don't think anybody, and I've said this in my videos, nobody should be locked up for the speech. Obviously, there are some restrictions on speech regarding the law. You can't incite violence. You can't specifically target people with speech and wish harm upon them or send them death threats. And that's where the free speech restrictions should end. Everything else, go for it. But I will say this. You have to own what you say. And there are consequences. And somebody came on the video and said that, oh, that's a left-wing argument, that freedom of speech isn't freedom from consequences, which is true. It's not. You have the right to say the things that you say, but you also have to take the consequences for that speech. That's just the way I was looking at it. I was looking at it from a devil's advocate point of view. You know, you've got to put yourself in other people's shoes to kind of understand what they're feeling. And I think people are failing to do that because of this underhanded, seething hatred they have for each other. And it wasn't just people on the other side. It was people from Liverpool as well who had the seething hatred for other people. And I started to see it, and it's like, yeah, there's something more to this. And obviously, I'm not from Liverpool or Manchester, but apparently there's an absolute undertone within their culture about they just hate each other. And I didn't even know about that. And I think that was a driving force behind people getting behind Andrew Lawrence's comment as well. And, you know, I didn't want to get involved in any of that. That's not what I'm about. I don't care about that sort of thing, about football factories and all that kind of stuff, you know, football firms and that. I'm not into that sort of stuff, you know, not interested. Doesn't interest me at all. Not into that. I understand there's a massive rivalry and that sort of thing. And that was feeding into the hatred of these two groups. So not having anything to do with that whatsoever. It's not what I'm about. Yeah, but there's a difference between making death threats and making valid death threats. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Steve. Yeah, I kind of get what you're meaning with that one. So, do they have the capacity? So, say I make a death threat. Say, yeah, I'm going to go and this is hypothetical, by the way. Yeah, I'm going to go and wish death upon somebody in America. Could I physically carry out that threat? There's a caveat to that, isn't there? As opposed to somebody living on my street where I'm perfectly capable of going and actually carrying out that threat. Yeah, I understand what you mean with that, Steve. Wait until you come across the undertone that comes out of Sunderland FC. I've never understood all this shit, all this football shit about rival football teams hating each other to a point where they've got to think they've got to fight each other. I've never really understood any of that. I really haven't. I'm not keen on Liverpool, but I wouldn't want any Liverpool fan injured. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, but I may have trouble with attending the rally on September 13th because my dad is trying to block me from going. In fact, he often turns me down just because I support Tommy Robinson. I'm sure if you got in touch with some patriots wherever you are, Jack, they would quite happily give you a lift down if you put word out there. Laura's timing was off. That's all. It was a current situation, just past, not past tense. Exactly right. The joke itself, right? It was designed to cause outrage. That's the whole sole intention. And I'm gonna say this because I think Steve can back me up on this as well because I think he was around about the same time I was about. Right. A lot of these edgy comedians nowadays, such as Ricky Gervais, um, Andrew Lawrence, a few others, Jimmy Carr, they think they're edgy. They think they've got the market covered on being edgy. But there were comedians doing way more edgier stuff back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s when I was young. We had Dave Allen and Roy Chubby Brown and others that were doing way more edgier stuff than the stuff you see now. I think a lot of people now think these new comedians are edgy because they've lived in this sanitized era where comedy has been sanitized. You look at Channel 4 and other things where you have these TV comedians. Then they're not a patch on the comedians I used to grow up with when I was a kid. They're not edgy at all. So the people that have grown up in this sanitized comedy, they see people like Andrew Lawrence and Ricky Gervais as being, whoa, they're edgy. When in reality, no, they're not. There have been way more edgier comedians than them. Look at George Carlin. George Carlin, even Spitting Image. I grew up with the 80s with Spitting Image. One episode of that was more edgy than anything that these modern comedians have ever done. There was, even back in the 80s, the Spitting Image went to a point where it was almost banned for the things it was doing on TV. To me personally, the joke that Andrew Lawrence told was benign. It wasn't even edgy, in my opinion. It was a throwaway comment designed to cause outrage, and it did. It got the desired result. I just think he underestimated the backlash he got for it, personally. But yeah, even some of the comedians that would do the working men's clubs back in the 80s and 90s were a hell of a lot more edgier than the comedians you see now who you think are edgy. Not at all. God, there's a reason why Roy Chubby Brown, I mean, he's another one. He's another one that does jokes purely to cause outrage in his audience. And he's honest about it. He just says, yeah, I'm doing this to outrage people. If you don't like it, you can F off. And that's the way he is. But yeah, I can remember that, not the 9 o'clock news. This is when TV was edgy. You look at the comedy in the 80s and 90s. You look at In Sickness and in Health. and all those type of sitcoms, even they're more edgier than some of the comedians you see nowadays on stage. You know, that they're not edgy at all. You know, there were people back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that paved the way. They really did push free speech. Look, George Carlin, I like smart comedy. That's what I like. You know, I'm not for the outrage comedy. The comedy's subjective. It depends what you like. Some people are into that. They like it when people are outrageous. And like Ricky Gervais, I mean, he was good when he did the Golden Globes, where he really made those the elites cringe in their seats because he told them exactly what he thought of them through comedy, which is that to me, that's smart comedy. I like that. I prefer that sort of comedy than just being outrageous for the sake of being outrageous, just call it outrage. You know, Charlie Veach chimed in on this and he said, you know, comedians are there to push the edge of free speech and to change things. And I looked and thought, well, what exactly was, you know, Andrew Lawrence trying to change with that joke? What was his point in changing it? Pushing the boundaries of free speech? It's already been done. That's already been done. That's not being edgy if it's already been done. It's some of these old sitcoms would never make it onto TV now with how woke things are. Not a chance. When it comes to comedy, free speech is an absolute 100%. However, the phase too soon comes to mind. He can always make the joke as long as he's happy for the social and career consequences. Exactly. That was my point. That was my whole point. You know, there were some people coming out that were like saying that he had no agency. Well, yeah. A lot of people in the comments were saying, right, if you make a controversial joke, you've got to take the consequences for it. And it was inevitable. It was inevitable that the far left were going to come for him when he made that joke. So you've got to ask yourself as well, was it really tactically sound for him to make that joke? Because he kind of shot himself in the foot. He knew exactly what the far left were like, that they would use this against him. So I think he made a bit of a blunder with doing it as well. To be honest with you, I think if it had made it like a month from now, nobody would have given a shit. It would have just been a passing comment. Oh, yeah. I think what it was, he made it the day after the incident. Everything was still fresh in everybody's minds. There was still a lot of anger knocking about. And I don't think people were so much outraged about the joke as it was just a focal point for their anger still. That's what I believe. People were still very angry and they saw what he put and they focused all their anger into that because they couldn't aim the anger at the person who had actually committed this atrocity. I think that had something to do with it as well. I hope it does. I hope he does. If ticket sales do skyrocket, I wish him all the best. I defend his right to make the joke. I just think it was not tactically sound. Is it like when Jimmy Carr, I mean, that's a joke we had 80 years ago? Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of comedians out nowadays that think they're pushing the edge of free speech and stuff like that when we had comedians back in the 80s and 90s doing it way before that. Way before that. You know, doing controversial jokes and Jim Davison doing controversial jokes. Like I said, Dave Allen. And your average comedian in a working man's club is way more edgier than the comedians we've got around today. Definitely. If anybody's ever went to a working man's club in the 80s or 90s and there was a comedian on, Jesus, if you got thin skin, then you definitely wouldn't go to these venues. They were brutal. The roasts they would do would make the comedians of today that do roasts look like a teddy bear's picnic. Nothing was off the table. Absolutely nothing was off the table. if you went to a comedy club back in the 80s and 90s, you had to have a pretty thick skin. And I very much doubt many of the people nowadays could go to a comedy club that was around back then and not be offended by something that they said. It's good you defended the right for the joke. Yeah, exactly. I defend the right for the joke. Definitely. He had every right to say it, but he's also got agency over what he said. For every action, there is a reaction, and he's responsible for his action and what he said. Exactly. Now, I don't, obviously, the far left are going to come out and try and cancel him. I don't agree with that. All right. A proportionate response to what he said was for people to just disagree with him. And he was getting disagreed with people like, saying, we don't agree with what you've said there. We think that's and that's free speech. That's fair enough. I don't agree with all the death threats. I don't agree with the violence that was obviously put towards him. He didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve to get cancelled, did he? It was a pretty benign joke. And trust me, Steve will attest to this, out in Iraq, the dark humor, it was dark. It makes anything that these comedians do on stage look like, a dad joke book, basically. I don't think I've seen any comedian go as dark as we did out on the front line in Iraq. But that's a different environment. There's no way I would come back here and post the jokes and the humor that we had on the front line in Iraq on social media. There's not a chance. I'd get banned instantly. So I'm not a shrinking violet, oh, I'm offended by it. It didn't offend me at all. The joke didn't offend me. I just thought it was ill-timed. And I put myself in the people's shoes that this incident happened to. As a dad myself with a daughter and young children, this guy drives over them, drags them down the road. And then, Andrew Lawrence makes that joke the day after. Obviously he's going to get anger. Obviously he's going to be the focal point of some backlash. That was always going to happen. That's what all I was trying to say is that, you angered a lot of people with your joke, which was the intention of it. By the way, I was never in Iraq, thank God. I was just the kid trapped underneath that triggered me. Yeah. No one is old enough except me to remember Bobby Thompson, who was born in. Yeah, I don't remember that. From what I understand, Bluebell, and I don't agree with this whatsoever, apparently all the comedy clubs in Liverpool have banned him from having a show there. Now, does he deserve that? No, he doesn't, does he? He doesn't deserve that at all. I think that's just a knee-jerk reaction because they're trying to appease the anger that people have got towards him regarding what he said. So, yeah, I think he's had a lot of venues cancelled in the future. It's not like he's had shows that he got planned cancelled. That it's just the whole of Liverpool has said, yeah, you're not welcome here. You're not welcome to do your shows here. Don't agree with that, obviously. Bit of an overreaction, but looking from their point of view, I don't know. I don't know. He's only does towns like Stafford. Yeah. Bobby Thompson was a foul-mouthed twat at the time. When I had to explain to my mother, who was a social worker, what the strange words she kept hearing meant, the Tuesdays were okay. Yeah, so for people that are just joining, I deleted the video about Andrew Lawrence because I just got tired of explaining to people the concept of free speech. And there was a lot of the football crowd coming into the comment section. A lot of them were getting the comments removed, not by me, but by YouTube. Because obviously it was full of profanity and words that YouTube doesn't like. And so I just deleted it. I thought it's not worth it. People aren't understanding why I made the video, so it's just best just to leave it. By the way, Vindicator, I did say something about Reform UK earlier. If you scroll up, let's have a look then. Whereabouts, sorry, Jack? Right, here we go. Okay, let's have a look at this. Is this what you were talking about, Jack? I turned 16 in September. I'll try and apply for a job at Reform UK to have a word with Farage and Tice and Yusuf and try and get them to remove the ex-Tories, Lib Dems and Labour people. Yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath on that one, Jack. I appreciate you trying, but yeah, don't think that's going to work, to be honest with you. Should I go to Reform? Right has tied itself in a bit of a knot, framing being offended as a lefty thing. In reality, there are legit reasons to be offended and non-legit reasons. Exactly. You know, my point was, right, what would have happened? Let's do a hypothetical situation where, right, say it wasn't Andrew Lawrence that made that comment, and say it was, I don't know, a left-wing comedian. Do you think that everybody on the right would have jumped to their defense and defended the joke? Just a hypothetical question. Just everyone in the chat, what do you think would have happened if it had been a left-wing comedian that made that joke and then caused the outrage? What do you think would have happened? Do you think they would have defended free speech and said it's just a joke? Frankie Boyle, wow. Yeah, Frankie Boyle stopped being edgy a long time ago, didn't he? Andrew Lawrence was also cancelled after the 2021 Euros, where he tweeted, "All I'm saying is the white guys scored when England lost the penalty shootout." Yeah, obviously that's the left, isn't it? Because they can't take a joke. The left would have probably caused trouble. Yeah. Jo Brown got away with the acid remark. Yes, she did. But that was edgy. Some people could have said that was edgy. And did she have a right to say that because she was saying that about politicians on the right wing of politics? To me, it was inciting violence, definitely inciting violence. But like you said, she got away with it. You know, I asked people a question as well. I said, if this had been done a day after the Southport incident, Do you think people would have defended the joke then as well? Remember, remember. So leftist said, would it be unacceptable to throw piss at Farage? Yeah. Do you think Farage ties Yusuf would go after me in a way similar to Rupert Lowe if I turned up to confront the ex-Tories? No, Jack. If you turned up there ranting and raving, they'd probably most likely have you arrested, mate. Has Gary Lineker got the right to say what he said? Yeah, it's if we're going to be talking about free speech, obviously I don't agree with anything that Gary Lineker says. But if we're talking about being edgy and free speech, I've got to say, does everybody know who Active Patriot is? Have you ever heard of Active Patriot? He's the guy that does all the videos about the illegal immigrants coming to the country, and he's been arrested a few times and stuff like that. Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the last show, I'm not getting into any of this petty tit for tat stuff that Liverpool and Manchester have between each other. I'm not interested in that at all. Reform UK is meant to be about us, not the Tories. Yep, they did Blue Belt. They got away with publishing false information. Nick Lowles. He claimed that was it a Muslim woman got acid thrown in her face, something, an acid attack, and that caused several gangs of Muslim youths to go out on the street. But he didn't face any charges for inciting violence, did he? I believe free speech should be everything otherwise. Should be on everything. Otherwise, we're arguing what is free speech or not exactly. Obviously, there are limitations, aren't there, on speech. You can't incite violence. You can't specifically target people and say violence against those people and stuff like that. That's inciting violence. But we're saying that free speech, again, is not freedom from consequence. It's like me. If I choose to talk about my employer and say where I work is shit on social media, and then I go in to work on the Monday, I'm taken into the office by the manager, and then I'm sacked for what I've said, who's to blame in that situation? Is it the employer or is it myself? No limitations. But with that, remember, if you want no limitations on free speech, that also means no limitations on free speech for your political enemies as well. Yeah, if you're if you're a Labour MP, you can beat up one of your own constituents in the street, knock them to the floor, and keep punching them while they're on the ground, and you won't face any prison time. You'll just get a suspended sentence. But if you say hurty words on Twitter to people, you get 3 years in prison. That's our justice system at the minute, isn't it? I'll say what I want when I want. Exactly. But would you be wasting your time going to yeah, exactly. I'm guessing you're a Labour MP. You can now expose your privates and get away with it because of the two-tier policing. I think that might be a line they draw. Yeah, Ricky Jones, I say more. I think the I think the consensus is right. You can say whatever you like, but the consequences for what you say are on you. I think that's fair enough, isn't it? I think that's fair enough. I think that's what everybody in society accepts. That yeah, you can say what you want to say, and you've got the freedom to say it, but you've also got to own the consequences for what you say as well. You can't just say anything you want to say and then not have any consequences for it. Legally, speech must be free, but the examples of use of that speech result in social ostracism or don't tell you how sane the society is. Okay, that's exactly what I'm like. But there are some people out there, Lee, that would say that they're allowed to say anything they like and you're not allowed to respond to them. That's what I have an issue with. It's like what Churchill said here. Read it again. Some people's idea of free speech is that they are free to say what they like, but if anyone says anything back, that is an outrage. That's what I've got an issue with. Oh yeah, I was going to do a video. I'm going to do a video about this tomorrow because it's amazing, right? Somebody actually, it was on Twitter. Somebody reported a shop owner for having Enoch Powell's speech in the shop window, and the police logged it as a non-crime hate incident. The speech from Enoch Powell. In fact, have I got that? Did I take a screenshot of that? I'll have a look, see if I've taken a screenshot of it. I'll be able to show it you because I was going to do a video about it tomorrow, but I'll bring it up in here as well. So I thought, this is the way the country's going. It really is. It's going to be thought crime next. I don't know if I've actually got it or not. Is it in here? I'll try and go and have a look for it. Talk amongst yourselves a minute. I'm going to try and look for this on Twitter and get it up so we can have a look at it because it's quite funny. They're nuts. Right, I'm going to try and get Twitter. It's hard when I'm streaming because everything just goes ultra slow. So I'm sorry if the sound breaks up while I'm doing this. I apologise. But yeah, to clarify for everybody, I'm for everybody having the free speech. Definitely, 100%. You're allowed to say what you want to say, but don't get upset when people criticise you back for what you say. Yeah, that's their right too. And I think the far left don't understand that. They really don't get it, the far left. That they think they're the only ones that are allowed to say and have any type of That is, sorry. Right, I'm looking for this tweet thing. Right, where is it? Right, profile. I think it's going to be in my replies. Everything goes slow when I do this. Everything just slows down. I'm waiting for it to load. I'll come back and I'll let it load before I get back to it. But yeah, I think a shop owner put Enoch Powell's speech in their window with a picture of him at the side, and she got a call from the police saying, you know, it was an offence and all this kind of stuff. I'll bring. I'm not sure about the whole story, so we'll find out. I'll do a screenshot and we'll have a look at it. And when it loads up, that is. Yeah, we're getting loaded now. Right, let's have a look for it. There's another great video I've got to do tomorrow. It's mainly the videos that are about. Let's have a look. I've got some video coming up tomorrow, I can tell you. Because our police, they need a major overhaul, because they're just not fit for purpose. I think we're getting to a point now where these where our police are actually putting the public at risk rather be. If I can find it, I did like it though, so I'll have a look. At the minute it won't load when I'm trying to do it, but I'm going to find it. I'm determined I'm going to find it. No, we'll have a look down. And I'm going to do a screenshot, then I'll load it up into the shocked at this one. I haven't got the full story because it's just a screenshot of it. The person who's uploaded it's onto Twitter. It's just a screenshot, but you'll get the full gist of what's going on in a minute. I was like, you're kidding me. These, what was it? Non-crime hate incidents. It's straight out of 1984, isn't it? I can't see the chat at the minute because I'm doing stuff on X. I'm sorry if you're making comments and stuff and I'm not seeing it. I'll be back in a minute when I've done this. I'm still chatting. You can still hear me. Come on, I want to take a screenshot. That's it. Do it. Right, well, I'll do a screenshot of this. There we go. Right, we've got a screenshot of it. Save that. Yeah, these non-crime hate incidents, they just need to be scrapped. Because for all I know, I've got about 20 with all the content I've done. I'm screwed. If I have any like background checks done for security work, I'm screwed. I know I'm screwed now, probably. Right, that should be saved now. Right, get out of that. Get rid of that. So I don't need that anymore. Right, hide this. I'm going to upload this now. I can see the chat now. I will have a look at the chat in a minute. Does anybody actually believe Nigel Farage is going to be our saviour? Really? Does anybody actually believe that anymore? Right, here we go. I was going to get this ready for. I don't think anybody actually does. I don't think anybody believes that they're going to be the saviour, right? Shopkeeper is gobsmacked after picture of Enoch Powell in a window is recorded by police as a non-crime hate incident. So now, if you have a political belief, I mean, that's not even aimed at anybody. That's just a member of parliament who made a famous speech, and that's his picture with the speech. But now the police think that that's a non-crime hate incident. It's crazy. It's insane. We're screwed in this country. We're absolutely screwed. I mean, the police are just totally politicised now. There's no other reason for that to be recorded as a non-crime hate incident than it to be a non-crime hate incident. Other than the police are politicised, and that some woke left police officer that's been brainwashed whilst in university doing their criminology degree has been told to hate their country and to hate people like Enoch Powell. And then you end up with situations like this. Wolf says this: the police would never go to a black owned or Muslim owned business and record them for having committed a non-crime hate incident for displaying photos of Malcolm X or Lewis. What, I can't even read that. But yeah. Yes, but it is relevant, as there is a book that came out about Powell's life. So what the fuck exactly? We are so screwed in this country, it's unbelievable. And I'm not sure that we've got the people, I'm not sure our movement is in the right shape as well to save it. It's not. Have you seen the armoured cars they've got now in London that they've just brought in? How many of those armoured cars have they actually got? And people were saying, why are they getting these armoured cars? Because they're preparing. Because just as we are aware that potentially in the next few years there's going to be a civil war, the authorities know that as well. And you can bet your bottom dollar that behind the scenes they're preparing. I mean, they're quite obviously preparing. They got these new, I think they're Land Rovers, similar to what used to patrol around in Northern Ireland when the Troubles were going on. It's the newer versions of those that the Metropolitan Police have got. So they know something's on the horizon. You don't get armoured cars like that for no reason. Yeah. And Steve, Army, yes. He returned, but never the same. Obviously suffering from PTSD. Was told he had heart disease, but sadly no help. Yeah, sadly that's the case. Yep. So look at some of these comments, see what people have been saying. So I missed a load when I was looking for that. When someone's been pushed to be next prime minister, you got to ask questions. Yeah, Farage has controlled opposition. Yep, 100% yes. I mentioned this in a live stream last night that Farage was. Sorry, it was a video. Farage was banging on about getting rid of the two-child benefit cap. And even the news media was questioning him on his figures about how he's actually going to do it. And you could tell from his reaction that he hadn't got a clue how he was going to do it. He gave some bullshit explanation about, oh, I'm going to deport all the illegal immigrants, and we're going to save lots of money if we do that because we won't have to pay for the hotels anymore. We won't have to pay for their upkeep. They'll all be gone. Do you really believe that Nigel Farage has got the balls to do that when only a few months ago he was saying in an interview that it wasn't his political ambition to do that? And you know, if we ignore the Muslim vote, we're doomed. There is no political solution. I've come to that conclusion, Martin. I think many other people have come to that conclusion. I'm just waiting for everybody else to catch up. You know, you hope for the best. You hope that voting is going to get us out of this. I know it won't. I know all the protests, all the free speech rallies, all the petitions is going to fall on deaf ears because they're just not listening. It's great for networking, all these rallies and stuff. Great for networking, great for finding like-minded people, great for giving people hope to make them think, you know, make them realize they're not alone. But politically, what is it really going to change? I believe in say what you mean and mean what you say. They blow it all out, hot and cold. Yeah. My dad came back with twins with disability with GSW in the femur, but he was still had to do 3 more years. But B6 excuse road marches were okay. You are never the same when you come back. You're definitely not the same. I think that's what a lot of people find difficulty with, especially veterans when they come back. They struggle to fit back into society. I had a few veteran friends that did way more, saw way more stuff than I did. And they said that they train you for everything but returning to civilian life. That's the one thing they can't train you for, is coming back, because you're so institutionalized. You're so used to doing a thing a certain way that it's like being in prison. That you come out and back into civilian life, and you know you've got to like kind of fend for yourself. You're not told where to eat, sleep, and shit anymore, because that's what it's like in the army. It's like prison. It's exactly like prison. You're told to eat and shit when when they want you to do that. It's the same in the army. So most veterans come back heavily institutionalized. Those that have seen combat, even more so, because they've seen all the horrific shit as well. And they come back to civilian life and they just can't fit in. That's why you see loads and loads of veterans out on the street, because doing a 9 to 5 job, working in a factory, they just can't do it. They simply cannot do it. They can't fit back in. Which is really, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree with this, I think once you've served in the army or anything like that, you should be exempt from tax completely. And you should be able to, they should be able to get their pension straight away as soon as they've been discharged, their full pension straight away. I don't know if they can get that already. I don't know about that. I think sometimes they have to wait. But a lot of them just end up on the streets forgotten. I keep bringing this up. The guy, I think, was he in the Royal Navy, it was the Royal Air Force, and he was a pallbearer for Princess Diana, and he died on the street. He died of hypothermia. Local council just gave him a sleeping bag. Instead of offering him accommodation, they just gave him a sleeping bag, and he died out on the street, forgotten. Served his country, fought for his country, forgotten, tossed aside. Once he left the armed services, not interested anymore. Bang, there you go, out you go, not interested anymore. Used up, spent, that's it, you're done. I'll be honest with you, Martin, right? I don't think anybody is going to save us. It's going to be down to you yourself to save yourself in all of this. PSP, yes, but they don't even try. Suddenly you've got to cope, even remember to pay your rent, etc. Some do try and they just fail. Because like I said, you can't untrain what you've learned. I still do it now. My partner will tell you about this. When I came back from Iraq, I mean, this was before I met her. I was really bad, PTSD, anger issues. I couldn't hold a job down. Simply couldn't hold a job down because of my anger. And it's still like that to some extent now. I've got anger issues, got pent up anger and stuff like that. And that's all because of the PTSD. And it's not just that you don't try, you do try, you try your hardest. But for some people, it's just impossible. For me, I just couldn't get my head around civilians and how they'll fuck each other over in the workplace to get ahead. And it's a totally different environment because when you're out on the front line and stuff like that, you're not like that. Everybody's got each other's back and you would die for them. No question. No question. I would have laid down my life for any one of my friends in Iraq. And they would have done the same for me. And you never get that bond again anywhere you go. You just never will. A lot of people, they still live with the mentality that's still out there. They never fully return. They come back, but they're still out on the front line out there. The mind is still out there somewhere. And they're just vacant when they come back. I think Jack's very young. Jack's very young. He's just turned 16, so I'm not diminishing any experiences you've had, Jack. But yeah, I don't envy you. I don't envy any youngsters in living in this era. I think we had it really good. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and it was one of the best times to grow up in this country ever, in my opinion. It was. Yep. A lot of people just can't afford to go. No, I mean the forces need to have a separation course for people to ready people for civilian life. I agree, but I don't think it would work, Steve. I don't think it would work. Some people just had too much of a traumatic experience. I think it would work for people that have just been in the army. They've not seen any actual combat or anything like that. They've just they just move from base to base doing their training and that sort of thing, which a lot of soldiers do. A lot of the soldiers in the army don't actually see any combat whatsoever. Even though some units will, a lot of them don't. And I'm only going on what my mates have told me, that it was like a rotation, that certain battalions would go out and stuff like that. A lot of them never really saw combat. But yeah, it would help. It would. I mean, obviously, there's the British Legion for when people come out to help with stuff like that. There is help from the job centre. I mean, I go in and there's things up on the wall saying if you served in the armed services, we can help you get back into training and stuff like that. And that's all well and good, but a lot of the time, the guys just can't fit back into society. Full stop. It's just impossible for them. Right, guys, we're at the 1 hour mark again. I've run out of things to say. Usually, when I get to about a 1 hour mark, I call an end to the live stream. I'm going to call it again tonight. Thanks for everybody coming in. It's been a good live stream. I think we've had some good conversations about everything. So, yeah, I shall see you all in the next video, the next live stream. See you all soon. This is Vindicator signing off.